Suzy Wrong, Joy Drive with Dean Warren's film, TV and theatre reviewer.
Suzy Wrong, it's so good to have you back on Joy Drive.
I'm still thinking about that letter you were reading before the news from the Karen.
Oh, totally Karen.
That's right, about the new neighbour in Brisbane, the girl who moved in.
I was wondering how long those people were having sex for.
Well, it was they were woken at 12:30 a.m. and it went on for a couple of hours, I understand. But you know, this is...
How do people have sex for a couple of hours? Is that for real?
We were talking about a lady in Brisbane who received a nasty letter from her neighbours about the noise that she was making. You know, the neighbour actually, the one who was having sex and making the noise, she said, I actually don't want to disturb my neighbours. She goes, so of course I'm going to tone down my sex and I'm going to shut my goddamn windows as well.
Yeah, well, but I'm with you, Suzy. Who's getting that action for 3 hours?
And noisy sex for 2 hours. That seems a bit extra.
She was enjoying herself.
Yeah, I'm just jealous.
Now, you gave us for homework the documentary series Alan v. Farrow.
Yeah, Alan v. Farrow is a 4-part docuseries investigating the sexual abuse allegations levied against superstar filmmaker Woody Allen by his daughter Dylan Farrow. The incidents are claimed to have taken place when Farrow was a child of 7 years in 1992, and as is the case with most sex crimes, it has taken decades for the victim to emerge with enough strength and clarity to offer up a narration of their own trauma. The directors Kirby Dick and Amy Ziering make no bones about the one-sided nature of their storytelling. This is not journalism as such, but a really powerful and persuasive indictment of someone who has gotten away with far too much for far too long.
I'm glad I wasn't the lawyer on this particular documentary. It seems to sail very close to the wind. But, I mean, it is very much a one-sided documentary, but if true, it is an harrowing account of an extraordinary level of abuse and a cover-up. What did you think of it, Suzy Wrong?
I always enjoy watching things, especially documentary, that sort of spell out how our systems work, you know, like how the power structures work. And I think we always have a sense that, because, you know, we are not the richest people in the world, we're not able to do this, we're not able to do that. But in these 4 hours, it kind of quite explicitly shows you what rich people, famous people, powerful people can and do get away with, even if it's something quite horrible like this. And I think that exposure is very valuable for people to observe.
I found it really difficult to watch. Difficult, not in the sense of it was poorly done. I thought it was great. But I just found it really challenging to watch. And I think it was probably because of, you know, all the old footage of the kids. And you could see on Dylan's face just that unhappiness and that fear that was resulting from the abuse. And I got a little bit shocked by that, to be honest. And the other thing that I thought was good was Mia is such a kind woman, isn't she? Like, she welcomed all these diverse kids and adopted them into a family. And I thought, what a beautiful dynamic of a family they had, and how sad to see over the course of the documentary that just completely unraveled.
Yeah, and it's not affecting one life. It then in turn affected the whole family and all their relationships with each other and both parents.
And then, of course, some of the kids turning against their mother, Mia, as well, because of the dynamic that was going on. And I found that really sad, that whole unravelling.
Warren, that is such a good point that you brought about Mia being such a generous, lovely person.
Beautiful.
And then if we think back to when all this news broke all those years ago, it was so easy for us to be manipulated by media and by Woody Allen's camp, of course, to suddenly think that, there's just no evidence, there's this, there's that, and then we start thinking that Mia Farrow is a horrible woman, and that, you know, people are somehow concocting this kind of news just for fun or something. Like, we are so silly. Like, it was so crazy to watch how we were able to be manipulated that way.
The media is terribly manipulating in this, and also because he is such a big force in media, and of course in New York media, it was just obvious. I mean, now that you look at it, but you know, what is it, 10 years hindsight, when we can look back at that report, 20 years, I don't know, and just look back at it and go, wow, yeah, I remember that stuff happening, but I don't remember it being shocked
Yeah,
by
we were
the
not
media.
outraged.
No.
We were just sort of drawn in by the salacious stuff about Suzy, the 21-year-old, and that became a huge distraction about the discussion about, oh, is she old enough to be in love with Woody Allen? Of course she was. She was 21, and then we completely forgot about the 7-year-old.
Well, here's the thing, that even if that case had come up, that Woody Allen has, as he says, fallen madly in love with the daughter of his partner, Suzy, regardless of the fact that, there's accusations that they were intimate before, well, not, she was abused before coming of age, then it doesn't matter. That's his role. He is the father figure in her life. It is, it's abominable, but then the way he saved himself from the Dylan accusations seems to have been by saying, but I can't have done that because I'm in love with my girlfriend's daughter. It's nuts, and it's only looking back on it, because I don't think I paid attention when it was happening.
And I don't think we really saw Mia's side, did we?
No.
And here you get exposed to her, the fear of retribution from Woody Allen of every time that Dylan spoke out about the abuse. There was the sadness, the feeling of, oh no, I failed as a mother by not protecting my kids as well, and then the heartbreak of losing 2 kids because he's manipulated them allegedly, to be against her and saying that she was the abuser. I mean, that woman has gone through so much.
We're speaking
that fear of retribution is always present in sex crimes, because it's always a matter about power imbalance, and if the person has power to rape you, the person has power to continue the taunt.
Because that's always the threat,
and
isn't it?
That was her emotion, like you could see, it was real. And it's the first time that I think, well, I've seen it anyway.
We are speaking, of course, to Suzy Wrong, who's helping us walk through the issues raised in Allen v. Farrow. It's a 4-part, 1 hour each documentary series, now screening on Binge in Australia. Suzy Wrong, what did you make of the audio recordings, obviously through tapped phone calls? I thought that Mia Farrow was recording Woody's calls, but it's not until the very end that you hear the call they're on being recorded, and then it clicks over and he's got a call waiting. He takes that call and says, no, I'm recording her, don't worry, I'm not giving anything away, I'm just getting everything I can out of it. So it's obviously his recording. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I thought I was a bit confused by that, but I just came out thinking that, they were both recording each other anyway, because they were so evasive, and they were just trying to get the other person to say the wrong thing in quite an obvious way. These strange phone conversations.
And I think you're right. Once you elevate it to, we can't really understand it, because they're both very wealthy. I don't think Mia Farrow's crying poor. That beautiful house in the upstate and the big,
Connecticut.
I don't think anybody's poor, but I can see the power that he has beyond money in the film industry, and it's I don't know. He's still walking around presumably, and Dylan's still suffering, and that's
the other thing about it was Dylan was throughout the whole thing, she's telling her story over and over, and people aren't listening to it. And I think one of the most heartbreaking moments of it for me, and most moving moments, was in the final episode when Dylan finally is with her husband. She feels safe and she starts trembling, and her jaw is trembling, and it's, to me, that's like, wow, it's the first time I've seen her tell her story and actually feel it. And you can just see that even though she's told her story so many times to so many people, she hasn't processed the trauma of it, and I thought that was one of the saddest things of her life.
Yeah, I think that points to this, what I believe to be the fallacy of the closure. I think there's so many things in life that you just can't expect to have a closure on. It is permanent damage, which is why it is such a grievous, horrible crime that's been committed, and which is why that, even though the system is not going to punish Woody Allen for it, there must be other ways that, he can be punished. Like this is the first time, I think, in 30, 40 years that he hasn't had a film out, 2020 and 2021. So I guess there is some retribution that's happening.
Highly recommend watching it. Allen versus Farrow on Binge.
Can I ask one final question, even though that felt like wrapping up? Ronan Farrow not presenting as an adult who is Satchel, presented as Satchel in the documentary. He's obviously got his own public profile, but he's landed on the side very firmly of Mia Farrow, one would assume. Do you know why he didn't participate in this?
Ronan Farrow was in it.
No, not as a grown-up, was he?
Yeah.
I must have missed it. I was doing a lot of laundry, to be honest.
No, he came out sort of at the last 2 episodes, and he was
the reporter.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ah.
That's right. He sort of led the Harvey Weinstein reporting in 2017.
Well, I've read all of that, so I just assumed.
Yeah.
I kept thinking throughout it, I wonder why Ronan's not here. Maybe I haven't seen the last episode.
Yeah, he comes out and he changes. He finally believes Dylan towards the end, but never really. He just, I think, dismissed her throughout. Their childhood.
Yeah, he did talk about dismissing everything. I guess that's what happens when you try to make. Have a sense of normalcy at home, and sometimes you just have to pretend that things are not happening. But now that everyone's a grown up, everyone's sort of stronger. The time of reckoning has arrived.
What an extraordinary family to be raised in.
Yeah, absolutely. Worth watching
abuse, notwithstanding. It's a great. A very well put together documentary, if nothing else, and certainly gives you something to think about. Suzy Wrong, we are off next week. Set us 2 weeks of homework, please. Not including next week.
Just 1 week's worth, but in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks' time, we're going to be talking about a new show called Generation, a dramedy series about teenagers at a Californian high school, many of whom are lesbian, gay, and bisexual. The first 3 episodes dropped last week on Binge, with more coming over the next 2 weeks.
So Generation on Binge.
Yep.
Suzy Wrong, what a pleasure. See you next time.
See ya.
See you, Suzy.